The ground shook with each explosion as the sky turned red above the battlefield. Smoke covered the land, hiding the faces of both enemies and allies. Humans had landed on planet Solara, not to conquer, but to survive. Their ship had crashed weeks ago. Now they were trapped in a war that didn't belong to them. But they had no choice but to fight. Private Jace Carter was the youngest soldier in his unit. He had never been in real combat before. His hands were still shaking, holding the plasma rifle close. He could hear his heart beating louder than the gunfire. He didn't want to be a hero. He just wanted to live and go home. The Zalaran Empire was ruled by a royal family of powerful aliens. They looked human, but they were faster, stronger, and born to lead. Among them was Princess Varela, the feared daughter of the Emperor. She wore black and silver armor, her long white hair tied back. She led her army like a storm. No one dared face her directly. No one, until now. Jace was separated from his unit in the middle of a chaotic skirmish. He ran through broken ruins, ducking behind walls, unsure where his team had gone. The enemy was all around him. A tall Zalaran warrior leapt toward him with a sword. Jace fired his rifle once. The warrior dropped without a sound. His breath was heavy as he turned to run. That's when she appeared. Princess Varela stepped out of the smoke, her glowing eyes locked onto him. Her soldiers stopped at her back. None moved. She tilted her head as if studying him. Jace froze, his rifle pointed halfway toward her. He knew he wouldn't get a second shot if he fired and missed. "Human," she said in a voice sharp like a blade. "You are just a boy." Her words echoed through the ruins. Jace didn't answer. His fingers twitched, ready to shoot. But something in her gaze held him in place. She walked forward slowly, her soldiers parting the way. She didn't raise her weapon. She didn't need to. "I saw what you did," she said. "You took down one of my champions." Her tone was curious, not angry. "You are not strong, you are not fast. But you are still standing." She stopped just in front of him. Jace kept his rifle up. He could feel sweat rolling down his neck. Then, the words came that would change everything. The princess looked around at the stunned soldiers, then at Jace again. With a voice loud enough for all to hear, she pointed at him and said, "He belongs to me." Her declaration was not a question. It was a royal command. Her warriors didn't move. They were confused. Jace stood there in shock. No one knew what it meant, not even Jace. An alien general stepped forward. "Your Highness," he said, "he is human. He should be captured or killed, not claimed." But the princess raised her hand and silenced him with a glance. "He showed something rare," she said. "I will find out what it is." Jace's mind raced. He had no plan, no training for this. Varela turned and began to walk away. "Follow me," she ordered without looking back. Her guards made space for Jace to walk. The humans watching from nearby didn't dare fire. They didn't know what was happening. Neither did Jace. He lowered his rifle slowly and stepped forward. His legs were heavy. But he followed. They reached a Zalaran command post deep within the ruins. Jace was not put in chains. He was not locked in a cell. Instead, he was taken to a tent with fine cloth and golden lights. Food was brought to him, fresh water. He didn't understand. Was this a trap or something worse? He had no way to know. Later that night, the princess came into his tent. She removed her helmet and looked at him. "You do not act like the others," she said. "Why didn't you run?" Jace didn't know what to say. "I thought I was going to die," he replied. She smiled slightly. "And yet you stood, you faced me." Her words were calm, but heavy. "Are you scared of me now?" she asked. Jace nodded honestly. "Yes," he said. She didn't laugh or mock him. She sat down across from him. "Good," she said. "That means your fear does not control you." There was silence between them for a moment. Then she leaned closer and looked into his eyes. "You are mine now," she whispered. "Not as a slave, not as a prisoner, but as something I have chosen." Jace felt like the world had shifted under him. He didn't know what she meant, but he knew nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk the human soldiers back at the edge of the ruins waited through the night, expecting Jace to return in chains. When he didn't, some thought he had been executed. Others believed he had surrendered and betrayed them. But no one dared to cross into the Zalaran zone to find out. The princess had marked him, and that alone brought fear. Inside the alien camp, Jace sat quietly as guards stood at every exit. He wasn't tied or locked up, but he wasn't free either. Food arrived again, hot and perfectly arranged. He hadn't eaten this well since arriving on the planet. Still, he barely touched it. His stomach was too twisted. Nothing about this made sense. Later in the morning, 2 Zalaran attendants entered and placed elegant clothes on the table. Light armor made from shimmering black fabric, trimmed with silver. "Wear this," one said softly. Jace frowned. "Why?" The attendant didn't answer. She only bowed her head and waited. Jace hesitated, but he changed into the alien clothing. The fabric fit perfectly, which only made him more nervous. He stepped out of the tent into the warm morning light. Soldiers stared at him, some with curiosity, others with hatred. No one spoke. Princess Virella stood on a platform ahead, addressing her people. Her voice was clear and powerful, echoing through the stone ruins. She turned as Jace approached. The crowd parted without a word. Virella held out her hand toward him. "He fought bravely and with honor," she said. "And though he is human, he showed the spirit of a warrior." She looked him over like a commander checking her new blade. "From this day forward, he walks beside me." Jace could barely process her words. He wasn't sure what walking beside her meant. A translator was working nearby, repeating her speech in human tongue. His name had never sounded so strange. The princess took one step closer and placed her hand on his shoulder. "He is under my protection. Harm him, and you face me." There was silence in the crowd. Even her own warriors were stunned. A few whispered among themselves. Some looked angry, others confused. But none dared speak against her publicly. Jace was led away again, deeper into the city ruins now used as Zalaran headquarters. The walk felt like a dream he couldn't wake from. In a private chamber filled with glowing crystals, she turned to him. "You do not understand what I've done, do you?" she asked. Jace shook his head. "Not even a little," he replied. "Why me?" Her expression was unreadable. "Because you did not cower when you should have. Because you are young and unshaped. You were not chosen for strength," she continued. "You were chosen for what lies hidden inside you." Jace swallowed hard. "And what do you think is inside me?" She stepped closer, now only inches away. "That," she said softly, "is what I plan to find out." Her voice carried power that didn't come from rank alone. They spent hours speaking after that. About the war. About Earth. About Zalara. Jace told her stories of his home, the music, the oceans, the cities. She listened with quiet attention, asking strange questions. "Why do humans cry?" she asked. "Why do they sing?" Her face was calm, but her eyes burned with something deep. "You act like this is a game," he said at one point. "Do you enjoy keeping me here like a pet?" Virella didn't smile. "No," she answered. "But I do enjoy watching the galaxy shift when something unexpected appears. You are that thing." Jace didn't know what he was anymore. Not a prisoner. Not a hero. Something else. That night, she invited him to stand with her during the war council. Generals entered the chamber and looked surprised to see a human sitting beside the princess. Charts of the battlefield were laid out, plans discussed. But Virella asked for Jace's thoughts. "What would your kind do in this position?" she asked. He answered carefully, unsure if it was a test. "My people would fall back," he said. "Lure the enemy in, let them overreach, then strike when they're spread thin." The room went silent. One general scoffed. "Coward's tactic." But Varela raised her hand. "It is clever," she said, "because it works." After the meeting, Varela turned to Jace again. "You're learning fast," she said. "You don't act like a soldier. You think like something more." Jace blinked. "Like what?" She didn't reply. She only touched his chest lightly, just over his heart. "I'll let that answer itself in time," she said. As he returned to his tent that night, Jace felt eyes on him, not just guards. Watching him from shadows, measuring him, some hated him. Others feared him. But the strangest part was that some seemed to admire him. And that thought unsettled him more than anything else so far. He sat down on the floor, looking at his own hands. Dirt under his nails, scratches on his skin. Just a boy in a war too big. But now the princess had said he belonged to her. Not as a prisoner, not as a slave, but as something else. Something he didn't understand yet. Something that might change everything. The next morning came with horns blowing across the ruined valley. It was a call to arms, loud and deep, waking the entire camp. Soldiers rushed into position, armor clanking and weapons ready. Jace stood outside his tent, still wearing the black Zalaran robes given to him. He didn't know if he was supposed to fight or stay behind. Princess Varela walked straight toward him, her long silver cape flowing behind her. She didn't wear a crown, but no one questioned her rule. "You'll ride with me," she said without asking. She handed him a small communicator. "Stay close. Don't speak unless I ask. Watch everything." Jace nodded without a word. A flying beast the size of a small ship landed beside them. It had wings made of crystal and black armor plates covering its body. Varela climbed on its back easily and motioned for Jace to sit behind her. He hesitated, but obeyed. As they lifted into the sky, the wind slammed against him. He held tightly to her armor. The battle below stretched across the valley. Human soldiers held the eastern line near the broken forest, while alien warbands attacked from the west. The ground was torn with old trenches and crashed ships. Varela pointed to a ridge far ahead. "That hill must not fall. If it does, the city gates will be breached." Jace could see the enemy moving fast toward it. "Are you going to land and fight them?" he asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she guided the beast in a wide arc, observing from above. "We will strike, but not yet," she said. "Timing is power." Her voice was calm, but her eyes locked onto every movement below. When they landed on the hill, the Zalaran warriors quickly made a circle around them. The human soldiers were already there, surprised to see the princess arrive with Jace. One of the lieutenants stared in disbelief. "He's with you?" he asked. "Why?" Varela didn't respond. She simply raised her hand to silence him. "Prepare for close combat," she ordered. "I will lead the front." Jace stood beside her, confused but alert. The enemy approached fast, tall, insect-like aliens with long blades and tough hide. They made a clicking sound as they ran. The air filled with the tension of war. Jace's hands began to sweat. Then, without warning, the enemy hit them like a wave. Blades clashed. Guns fired. Screams filled the hilltop. Jace fired carefully, aiming between gaps in armor. He wasn't the best shot, but he didn't miss. His heart pounded in his ears. He saw Varela cut through the front like lightning, her sword a blur. She fought without fear, without hesitation. Each move was precise and deadly. Jace had never seen anything like it. She moved like war itself. But then something changed. An enemy blade struck her shoulder. She winced, stumbled for a second, and Jace saw it clearly. Without thinking, he ran forward. He grabbed the attacker from behind and jammed his rifle into its neck. One pull of the trigger, and the alien collapsed. Virella looked up, surprised, her eyes meeting his. He pulled her up quickly. "You good?" he asked. She nodded once. "Yes," she said, her voice softer than before. The battle raged on for minutes that felt like hours. When it finally ended, the hill still stood. Their side had won, but bodies lay all around. The wounded cried out, and the air smelled of smoke and blood. Jace sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Virella stood over him, her shoulder bleeding but her face calm. "You saved me," she said quietly. Jace looked up. "So?" He answered, "You saved me first." She knelt beside him and touched his face lightly, wiping blood from his cheek. "That's not how it works in my world," she said. "No one touches me unless I allow it. No one stands beside me unless I choose them. You chose me," he said slowly, "but you never said why." She didn't move her hand. "Because I knew you'd surprise me," she replied. "And you did." Jace didn't understand half of what she meant. But somehow he felt like he was no longer a visitor in this place. He was part of something now. Later, back at the camp, medics treated the wounded. Virella let the healers work on her injury, but she never took her eyes off Jace. That night, as the fires burned low and the stars filled the sky, she invited him again to her chambers. This time, the guards didn't even blink when he entered. "I never expected a human to fight like that," she said as they sat across from each other. "You're not trained like we are. But you adapt fast." Jace shrugged. "I've had to. I never wanted this war. None of us did," she nodded. "But now you're in it. And now you are one of us." The words stayed in his mind as he lay down later. One of them, was he? He was still human. Still a soldier from Earth. But now he rode their beasts, sat in their war councils, fought by their princes, and now their people looked at him differently. Some with hatred, some with respect, some with fear. Jace stared at the ceiling of the tent, listening to the soft sound of the night wind. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but deep down, he knew one thing. He didn't feel like the scared boy who crashed here anymore. He was something more. And the galaxy was beginning to notice. The days passed quickly, filled with battles, brief victories, and losses too heavy to count. The war across planet Solara was reaching a breaking point. Enemy forces kept pushing harder, knowing the humans and Zolarans were now fighting together. Jace had become a strange symbol part. A lie, part mystery, and part threat. Inside the war camp, things had changed. Jace no longer walked alone. Some Zolaran soldiers greeted him now, others still stared with cold eyes. He ignored both. He trained harder, listened more, and stayed close to the princess. Not because he had to, but because part of him didn't want to be anywhere else. Princess Virella didn't treat him like a servant. She taught him how to move like a Zolaran, how to see with more than just eyes. "Your enemies will lie, but their bodies will always tell the truth," she said. She showed him maps, battle strategies, even ancient history. Jace soaked it in like dry earth drinks rain. One evening, after a long patrol, they stopped on a high cliff overlooking a broken city below. Fires glowed between the ruins. Jace sat beside her in silence. "This city was once filled with music," she said. "Now it only knows screams." Her voice was heavy. For the first time she sounded tired. "Why do you still fight?" Jace asked. "You're already royalty. You could stay far away and command from safety." She looked at him with eyes full of fire. "Because I was born to protect," she said. "And because no one follows a leader who hides behind walls." Jace believed her. Every word came from the heart. Suddenly, their communicator crackled. A scout's voice screamed over the channel. "Emergency! Our southern flank is falling. They've breached the second line." Virella stood at once, face hardening. "Call the riders." "We leave now." She looked at Jace. You ride with me again. I will not face this without you. They flew through the night, the wind screaming in their ears. Below, the battle burned red in the darkness. Explosions lit up the ground like lightning. Varella's army was already fighting back, but they were outnumbered. When they landed, the ground shook beneath their boots. Enemy troops surged toward the final wall. Jace fought side by side with Zalarans he barely knew. He ducked under claws, rolled between legs, fired shot after shot. Each breath felt like a lifetime. Then he heard Varella cry out nearby. She was on one knee, blood running down her side. A massive beast loomed above her, raising its blade. Without thinking, Jace sprinted forward, slamming his shoulder into the monster's side. The creature stumbled. He fired point blank into its chest. It dropped. Then another came. And another. Jace stood in front of her, reloading fast, breathing hard. Get behind me, he shouted. But she stood back up, sword in hand. I don't hide, she said, voice full of fury. Together, they fought like one body. He shot while she slashed. She moved left, he moved right. Soldiers nearby stopped fighting just to watch them. Something about their rhythm felt different, not just skill. Something deeper. Something stronger than war. By dawn, the enemy had been pushed back. The Zalaran flag still flew over the wall. Jace dropped to his knees, exhausted. Blood ran down his arm, and his helmet was cracked. Varella sat beside him, also wounded but smiling faintly. You stood your ground again, she whispered. Even when I fell, he looked at her, chest rising and falling. Because you did the same for me, he said. She leaned her head against his shoulder, not caring who saw. They will speak of this day, she said. Of how a human stood. Where even my strongest warriors fell. Jace didn't know what to say. So he stayed silent. Later, as medics worked on their wounds, a group of alien elders arrived. Dressed in white, they knelt before Varella and bowed low. One of them looked at Jace with ancient eyes. The bond has formed, he said. The war sees it, the stars feel it. You two are no longer strangers. You are linked. Varella didn't deny it. I chose him, she said to the elders, and he chose to stand beside me. That is enough, the elder nodded. Then the bond is sacred, Jace blinked. Wait, what bond? Varella smiled gently. It is the Zalaran rite of fire. When two souls fight together beyond fear, their spirits begin to match. That's not magic, right? Jace asked. It's just a ceremony thing. She didn't answer directly. It is older than our books. Some call it fate. Others call it strength. I call it real. Jace felt his chest tighten. He didn't understand it all, but he felt it, that connection, that force between them. As night returned again and the stars filled the sky once more, Jace lay in his tent thinking of her, of the fire in her eyes, of the way she bled and still stood tall, and of the strange truth, she had chosen him, not by mistake, not by chance, but because something inside him had answered her call. Asterisk, the rain came hard the next morning, soaking the ruins and turning the battlefield into mud. Soldiers moved slower, their steps heavy, but the tension in the air was sharper than ever. The enemy was quiet for now, but everyone knew it wouldn't last. Whispers spread through both human and Zalaran camps something was coming. Jace walked through the tents in silence. He passed soldiers he had fought beside. Some who once ignored him now nodded respectfully. Others still avoided his eyes. He didn't blame them. A human standing beside their princess was something new, something they didn't understand. Truthfully, he didn't fully understand it either. Inside the command tent, Princess Varella stood over a glowing table filled with maps and red marks. The enemy has gathered their full strength, she said without looking up. They'll strike here at the heart, before the moons rise again. She tapped a point on the map. "This is where it ends." One way or another, Jay stepped closer. "Are we ready?" he asked. Varela looked up. Her eyes were calm but firm. "No," she said, "but we fight anyway." Her voice didn't shake. "The humans will hold the eastern flank. My warriors will lead the center. And you will ride beside me one last time." One of the generals frowned. "He's still a boy. He should not be on the front lines." Varela narrowed her eyes. "He's earned his place. And he will stand with me by right." The tent fell silent. No one argued after that. Jace didn't speak either. He only nodded, his chest tight but steady. As the day passed, soldiers prepared for the final battle. Weapons were cleaned. Armor tightened. Letters written in case they didn't return. Jace sat outside his tent, looking up at the dark clouds. Everything had changed since he first landed here. He wasn't the same scared boy anymore. Something stronger had taken root inside him. Varela approached quietly and sat beside him. She didn't wear armor yet, just a long black robe. "Do you fear what's coming?" she asked. Jace thought for a moment. "Yes," he said, "but fear keeps me sharp," she smiled. Good answer. For a while, they just listened to the distant wind and falling rain. "Why did you really choose me that first day?" he asked suddenly. Varela looked at him with a soft expression. "Because I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Someone who stood when they should have fallen. Someone who reminded me of the fire I used to carry." She reached out and gently took his hand. "You reminded me that hope doesn't always come in strength. Sometimes it comes in the smallest defiance." Her grip was warm, her fingers strong. "I didn't choose a soldier that day. I chose a reason to fight with heart again." The sun never fully rose. Dark clouds kept the sky gray. Just before dusk, horns sounded from the cliffs. Scouts returned with news. The enemy was moving, fast and in numbers not seen before. The ground trembled before the fight even started. Jace tightened his gloves and met Varela at the staging line. The Zalaran army was ready. Warriors stood in perfect formation, glowing blades drawn, faces marked with battle paint. The human troops lined up at the eastern edge, their rifles charged and ready. Princess Varela stood at the front, armor gleaming in the stormlight. Jace stood beside her, heart steady. "You don't need to prove anything," she said quietly. "You already have." Jace looked at her, then ahead at the approaching storm. "I'm not here to prove anything," he said. "I'm here because you trusted me. And I won't let that trust break." The first wave of enemies appeared over the ridge giants with red eyes and steel claws. They roared as they charged. The battlefield exploded into noise and fire. Varela moved first, her sword cutting through the air. Jace followed, his rifle firing in perfect rhythm. Together, they met the storm head-on. Explosions lit the field. Mud flew in all directions. Screams and war cries blended into a deafening wall of chaos. Jace moved like water beside her, ducking, aiming, firing. Varela spun like a storm, blades flashing, armor shining even through blood. She fought like a queen made for battle. Then it happened. A blast hit near them, and the ground cracked open. Jace fell into the hole, sliding down stone and dirt. Pain shot through his leg. He gasped, trying to stand, but the wall was too steep. Above, the fight raged on. He heard her call his name once, then silence. Seconds later, she leapt down after him. Her armor was scratched, her cheek bleeding, but her eyes burned bright. She knelt beside him. "You're hurt," Jace winced. "I live." She placed her hand on his chest. "I didn't come this far to leave you behind." She helped him up, supporting his weight. Together, they climbed back up, step by painful step. Enemy soldiers tried to block them, but she cut them down without slowing. Jace fired over her shoulder, every shot counting. When they reached the top, the army around them cheered. The battle was still far from over. But in that moment, something had shifted. The princess had leapt into danger, not for a throne, not for glory, but for him. And Jace, broken and bleeding, still stood because of her hand. Asterisk, the sun broke through the clouds at last, lighting the battlefield with pale gold. Smoke still rose from the ruined ground, but the sounds of war had faded. Silence spread slowly, like a blanket over the dead and the living. Jace leaned on Varella's shoulder, one arm around her for support. They were both covered in dirt. Blood and ash, the enemy had fallen back. What remained of their forces scattered into the wild lands. The Zalaran army stood bruised and bloodied, but standing. The humans had held their flank, barely. It wasn't a victory built on strength. It was a victory bought with pain, courage, and something stronger than fear. Medics moved between the wounded, but they gave the princess and her chosen human space. Everyone had seen her leap into that pit. Everyone had watched her return with him by her side. No royal had ever done such a thing before. Varella's name was now whispered like legend, and Jace's name echoed beside it. They were helped into the central command post, where the remaining leaders gathered. One Zalaran general bowed deeply. "The line held because of your leadership," he said, "and because of the human." He turned to Jace. "You have earned a place among us that no outsider ever has before." Varela sat straight despite her injuries. He stood where many fell. "He protected me not for gain, but from something real. If that does not earn him a name in our history, then our history is blind." Her voice was clear. Her hand stayed gently on Jace's shoulder. Later that day, a gathering was called beneath the ancient sky pillar, an old Zalaran stone where only sacred vows were spoken. Both armies, human and alien, stood shoulder to shoulder. The battlefield had become holy ground. Varela stepped forward first, dressed in clean robes lined with gold. She raised her voice so all could hear. "The war may not be over, but today, we have found something worth protecting beyond land or blood. A bond between two peoples who once stood apart. This bond began with one moment, one human, one choice." She turned to Jace. "You did not come here by fate," she said. "You crashed into our world, and yet you rose from the dust. You fought beside us, bled with us, saved me when others ran. Now I ask again, before my people and yours, do you still choose to stand beside me?" Jace stepped forward slowly. The entire world seemed to hold its breath. He looked at her, then at the soldiers watching. "I do," he said. "Not because I have to, because I believe in what we've started. And because I believe in you." His words were simple, but they landed like stone. Cheers rose from the crowd. The pillar behind them glowed faintly with ancient energy. No one expected what happened next. Varela removed a thin silver ring from her wrist, a royal token not worn by anyone but heirs. She placed it on Jace's arm, just above his wrist. "Then you are no longer just a soldier. You are Zalaran." The ceremony ended with fire torches lighting the ruins. Songs began low, deep Zalaran chants mixed with human voices. Food was shared, wounds were treated. For the first time in many weeks, laughter returned to the camps. Jace sat beside the princess as others celebrated around them. She leaned close to him, her voice soft. "You could leave now, you know. Return to your people. Go back to Earth if you wished. You've earned that." Jace looked at the stars above, then back at her. "I could," he said. "But I won't. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. Until now." She smiled in a way no one else had ever seen. Not the fierce warrior, not the cold royal, just Varela, the one who chose him. "Then stay," she whispered. "Not as a symbol, not as a weapon, but as the one I trust most." Jace reached for her hand and held it gently. Days turned into weeks. Peace talks began. Small groups of humans and Zalarans worked side by side to rebuild what the war had broken. Jace took no official title. He refused to be called commander or prince. But wherever he walked, doors opened. Wherever he spoke, others listened. He trained young soldiers from both sides, teaching them how to fight smart, not just hard. Varela led with wisdom and strength, but she never acted alone. She always looked to him, not for orders, but for balance, for the one voice that could calm the storm inside her. And though battles still happened far away, they no longer feared the future. Not because the war had ended, but because they had found something worth more than winning. A bond born in fire, sealed in blood, and shaped by trust. A bond that neither time nor distance could break. And so the youngest human soldier, the boy who crashed into a war he never asked for, became the man who stood beside a princess not out of duty, but because he was chosen. And in choosing each other, they gave hope to two worlds that had long forgotten how to dream.